everyone, I am Aryan Shah. I am an MBBS student from Nepal Medical College, and in this video, I'll be talking about acute proliferative glomerulonephritis. And most of us know it by the name of post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis, right? But there is a difference between saying acute proliferative glomerulonephritis and PSGN, because PSGN is a part of acute proliferative glomerulonephritis, right? So the name itself says acute and proliferative and glomerulonephritis. So acute means that there is a short duration of history, and the history of duration is usually in terms of weeks. So it is in terms of 1 to 2 week history in the, and the proliferative terms means that there is a proliferative changes that has been seen in a glomerulus. So whether, let us say, this is a glomerulus with a lot of capillaries, and we can see there is hypercellularity within the glomerulus, and this hypercellularity within the glomerulus can be contributed due to endocapillary as well as exocapillary proliferations. So I have already talked about endocapillary and exocapillary proliferation in previous videos. But what does endocapillary means? That there is proliferation of the things that is present inside the mesenterium. That is the proliferation of the parietal epithelial cells. Along with that, there is mesangiocapillary proliferation, and that is known as endocapillary proliferation. And what does exocapillary proliferation means is that there will be proliferation from the cells that will be inseeding into the glomerulus, like neutrophils that can be monocyte, or they can even be lymphocytes, right? So proliferative means there is changes, that is proliferative changes that can be seen in the glomerulus, that is resulting into glomerulonephritis. And glomerulonephritis itself means inflammation of the glomerulus, and this inflammation result into a classic features, and that will be knowing that we have already studied as nephritic syndrome. So nephritic syndrome, and this is our first individual topic lecture on nephritic syndrome as well. So let us begin with acute proliferative glomerulonephritis. And as with all other nephrotic as well as glomerulopathic diseases, it is very similar in pathogenesis, that it is also due to immune mediated cause. So there is an immune mediated cause is there. So immune mediated cause means that there should be an antigen and there should be an antibody, right? So antibody will be produced by our own body in response to the antigen which is foreign to our body, or it can be even endogenous to our body as well. So let us see what are those antigen. The antigen can be, as I said, it can be endogenous antibody, endogenous antigens. So we are talking about antigens, and they can be as endogenous endogenous. So what does endogenous means is that it is present from it is the antigen that is present in our body itself, right? For example, we can take an example of SLE, where the double-stranded DNA and its component will act as antigen, right? So in this is SLE is a case of endogenous antigen, whereas we can take another example of exogenous. So exogenous antigen. So what does exogenous antigen means is that the antigen that is present will be not, it will not be from our body, but instead it will be exogenous, means it is coming from other side, and it can be infectious, like bacterial. So bacterial antigen, and most common bacterial antigen that is actually leading to antigenemia and leading to production of antibodies, and eventually causing DPGN, that is APGN, or acute proliferative glomerulonephritis, and that is most commonly our streptococcal. So streptococcal group A, streptococci, and this streptococci belongs to group A, Lancefield. So group A, beta hemolyticus streptococcus, and this is the most common agent, bacterial agent, or it can be considered as the most common agent that is really causing acute proliferative glomerulonephritis, right? So what are the other causative agents? So it can be viral cause. Viral cause can be there. And what are the different viruses? It can be due to hepatitis B viruses, C virus, even HIV can lead to, but HIV mostly causes FSGS, as I have already told in the video of FSGS as well. And it not only that, it can also be due to parasitic causes. So parasitic causes. And what are the parasitic causes? It is usually due to malaria. Okay. So we can give several reasons for acute proliferative glomerulonephritis, and the And in all this condition where there is production of antigen, and this antigen can be endogenous or this antigen can be exogenous, and this production of endogenous as well as exogenous antigen, that will in presence of them our body will produce antibody against this antigen, and this antigen antibody reaction will happen in the blood, and this will get filtered, and while in during the process of filtration it will get filtered through the glomerulus and will be deposited within the glomerulus. So it will be deposited within the glomerulus and eventually causing activation of the complement system. So the antibody, let us consider this an antibody, and this portion of antibody is known as Fc portion of the antibody, and this will activate the complement. And usually this antibody is IgA subtype of antibody, and this IgA subtype of antibody will result into activation of complement via alternate complement pathway, or it can also be IgG antibody where there will be activation via classical pathway of complement activation, and that will result into formation of membrane attack complex. Not just that, the complement will be resulting into formation of C3b, C3a, C5a, and these are our anaphylatoxins. And this anaphylatoxin will result into degranulation of the mast cells and eventual damage to the platelets, or also the damage to the glomerulus as whole. So because of this, eventually the pathogenesis will result into infiltration of the neutrophil, infiltration of the monocyte. Along with that, there will be production of a lot of growth factors, and this growth factor will result into proliferation within the glomerulus, and this proliferation in the glomerulus will manifest with proliferative change within the glomerulus within a very short period of time, resulting into inflammation of the glomerulus that will be known by the name of acute proliferative glomerulonephritis. So as I have already told about the most parameter of etiology, the most common cause of acute proliferative glomerulonephritis is via the post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. So post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis is the most common cause of acute proliferative nephritis, or PSGN can be also considered as the most common cause of nephritic syndrome in case of children. So in children, the most common cause of nephritic syndrome is PSGN, and you can remember by the fact that P stands for pediatric groups and P stands for PSGN as well. So it is the most common cause of glomerulonephritis in case of child. So usually the child will give a history of sore throat, or most commonly they can give a history of skin infection, so that is known as impetigo, right? So there is a history of impetigo more commonly, and less commonly there can be history of sore throat. And because of this infection due to streptococci group A beta hemolyticus streptococcus. So this group A beta hemolyticus streptococcus, not all the strain, but special nephritogenic strain. What are those nephritogenic strain? So we must know the nephritogenic strain, and they are 12, 4, and 1. And this strain will result into production of antigen, and the antigen that is produced is SPEB antigen, and this SPEB antigen is also known as streptococcal pyrogenic exotoxin B antigen. So SPEB antigen means streptococcal pyrogenic exotoxin B antigen, and this antigen is produced by nephritogenic strain, and the nephritogenic strain is 12, 4, and 1. It is the point to be remembered, and this happens because of the skin infection most commonly. So there is a child who come with the who has a history of skin infection for past 2 to 4 week before. So he has a history of impetigo 2 to 3 4 week ago, and now he presents to your clinic by showing certain clinical manifestation, and these clinical manifestations are typical of nephritic syndrome, and where you will be seeing cola colored urine. So cola colored urine that manifests when there is hematuria. Along with that, not just cola colored urine, you can see there will be mild proteinuria. So mild proteinuria, and that will manifest with periorbital edema. So periorbital edema, and in certain cases this can be so severe that it can result into hypertension as well. So hypertension. सो के हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि एउटा चाहिँ हाम्रो केस आएको हुन्छ, अनि यो चाहिँ युजुअली चाइल्डको केस हुन्छ मोर कमनली, अनि पास्ट 14 days अगाडि चाहिँ he might have had a skin infection that is known as impetigo, or he might have had a sore throat, है, and that is usually caused by के हो, it is usually caused by group A beta hemolyticus streptococcus, अनि त्यसको नेफ्राइटोजेनिक स्ट्रेन भन्ने याद राख्नुपर्छ 12, 4 र 1. अनि किनभने यो नेफ्राइटोजेनिक स्ट्रेनले एन्टिजेन निकाल्छ, यो एन्टिजेनको नाम के हो, SPEB एन्टिजेन, अनि यो एन्टिजेनको अगेन्स्टमा एन्टिबडी प्रोडक्सन हुनलाई 10 देखि 14 दिन लाग्छ क्या, एन्ड दिस इज आवर ल्याक पिरियड. सो ल्याक पिरियड, त्यसै कारण के हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि जब पेसेन्ट तिम्रो क्लिनिकमा आएको हुन्छ, he will be presenting with cola colored urine, mild proteinuria along with periorbital edema, or in severe cases he can present with hypertension. But the incident, the original incident के थियो, the skin infection अथवा the sore throat will not be there. Okay, मतलब के हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि यो infection has already been cleared out, but the production of antibody, and this antibody will react with the antigen, and that will be a type of type 3 hypersensitive reaction, and this will be deposited within the glomerulus. Okay, and this will be deposited within the glomerulus, and the recurrent pathogenesis resulting into complement activation, and eventually that will result into acute proliferative glomerulonephritis, which is mostly due to streptococcus, and hence it is also known as PSGN, post streptococcal glomerulonephritis. Right? So this is the classic picture of PSGN that we'll be seeing, and you must know the period of, there is a period of 10 to 14 days, a lag period, because the antibodies that are formed against SPE antigen takes time to roughly about 10 to 14 days, right? So it is a point of interest as well. So acute post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis is usually associated with overcrowding and poor hygiene. And usually what happens is that it is usually due to group A beta hemolyticus streptococcus, and there are nephritogenetic strain, usually 12, 4, and 1, and 90% of cases are due to this nephritogenetic strain. And infection occurs in the pharynx, that is, I said, sore throat, or it can be infection in the skin, that is known as impetigo. And age group, we are very, as I said, it is most common in the child, and the child between the age group of 6 to 10 years, but it is not that adult will not be affected. Of course, adult may also be affected, and if the adult are affected, there is a very, it does not have a good prognosis in adult as compared to child. So as I said, acute proliferative glomerulonephritis can be due to other causes as well. It can be due to staphylococcal cause as well. It can be due to pneumococcal pneumonia. It can be due to meningococcemia. So there are several other causes as well. As I said, it can be due to hepatitis B virus, C virus. It can also be due to HIV virus, and even due to varicella virus. And it can be due to parasitic causes like malaria and toxoplasmosis as well. So the pathogen, as I've already discussed, I'm going fast because I've already discussed all these parameters, right? So it is a type 3 hypersensitive reaction, where there will be, the first event is that there is acute, there is exposure of antigen, and this antigen is SPEB antigen. So it must be noted because it will be asked in MCQ. And the acute proliferative glomerulonephritis will happen 1 to 4 weeks after the infection, and this is our lag period, because it takes this much time to generate the antibodies against this antigen, right? So it takes time. So because of this, there is presence of lag period. So this lag period should be taken in consideration, and hence this will prove that it is an immune mediated cause as well. So formation of immune complex happens. So we have an antigen, we have an antibody, and there will formation of antigen antibody complex, and they are formed in the blood against the microbial antigen, which will bind the antigen to form the immune complex, and this immune complex will eventually get deposited in the capillary wall, and eventually lead to damage of the glomerular capillaries, and manifesting with acute proliferative glomerulonephritis. Right? So and then after antigen antibody binding, it will result into activation of the complement system, and this complement system will generate membrane attack complex, and eventually it will damage the glomerular basement membrane and the filtration barrier as well. And with that, there will be production of C3A and C5A, and they are our chemoattractant and anaphylatoxin. It will attract the neutrophil monocyte into the glomeruli, and the monocyte and neutrophil will release their lysosomal enzyme and reactive oxygen species, which will even injure the glomeruli now more often, and hence the damage will be there. And also there will be production of the growth factors, and this will result into proliferation within the glomerulus, hence the name called as acute proliferative glomerulonephritis, right? So what is the morphology that you will be seeing in the glomerulonephritis? So basically, whenever we are talking about morphology, we will be seeing it via 3 features. We'll see the light microscopic feature, then we'll see in the electron microscope, and then we'll see the immunofluorescence study, right? So what do we see in the light microscope? So basically what we see in the light microscope is about the glomerular basement membrane, and what we see about we'll be seeing about the cellularity, right? So we'll be seeing about cellularity, and we'll be seeing about the glomerular basement membrane. So what do we see in the electron microscope? What do we see in the electron microscope is that we'll be seeing about the deposit, so where the deposit will happen. And what do we see in the immunofluorescence is that what type of deposit is there, right? So it can be due to it can be granular deposit, or it can be diffuse deposit. And what is the granular deposit? That can be either, it can be immunoglobulin, or it can be complement. So we'll be seeing this parameter while doing microscopy. So let us see about the morphological feature in acute post-infectious glomerulonephritis. So as I already said, there will be proliferation, and there will be, because of this proliferation, there is diffusely hypercellular glomeruli, and this hypercellularity is caused by inflammatory cell. And this inflammatory cell are neutrophil and monocyte, and this is known as exocapillary proliferation. Along with that, there will be proliferation of the endothelial cell, mesangial cell, and this is known as endocapillary proliferation. And in about 5% cases, it can result into RPGN. RPGN means rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, that I'll be talking in the next lecture, and result into formation of crescents. And this crescent is seen in about 5% of cases, right? And that is especially RPGN type 2. So this happens that when we see it in the light microscopy. So this is our normal diagram, and we can see here a lot of infiltration of the neutrophil, monocyte, macrophages. So see, this is a neutrophil, we can see here, and even this is a neutrophil, and we can see that there has been proliferation of neutrophil along with that. So as we can see, the amount the glomer so there has been proliferation, and this proliferation is endocapillary as well as exocapillary proliferation. Along with that, there will be swelling of the endothelial cell as well. So along with that, the combination of proliferation plus swelling plus and this will what will that there will be obliteration of the lumen, capillary lumen. As there will be obliteration of the capillary lumen, there will be decrease in the glomerular filtration rate, and eventually there will be decrease in the GFR that will result into oliguria. So oliguria will happen, and eventually that will result into azotemia and uremia as well, that I have already discussed in the video on nephritic syndrome. So then we'll be doing immunofluorescence study, and what do we see in immunofluorescence study is that we'll be seeing the deposition of immunoglobulin G, IgM, C1, C4, and C3. And these are found in the location, especially in the subepithelial location. But it is not that it will just be located in the subepithelial area. It can be deposited everywhere. But the matter of fact is that the SPE antigen, it is cationic. So because of this cationic character, it will get deposited deeper, and the deeper location is present. That is our subepithelial area. So let me explain this. So these are endothelium. So endothelium has negative charge, and beneath the endothelium there is glomerular basement membrane, and here is the podocyte. So there is our podocyte. So if there is a cationic charge on the antigen, then it will be attracted, so as a result of it, it will be deposited in this area, and this area is just present beneath our epithelial. So this area is known as subepithelial area. So just beneath the epithelial area, there is production of hump, and this hump is known as subepithelial humps, and this is very characteristic of PSGN. And the deposits are also, but it can also be found here, it can also be found here, and it can also be found here. So the deposit can also be found in the glomerular basement membrane. Also it can be found in the subendothelial area, and also in the mesangium as well. But the most common location still remains the subepithelial location because of the cationic charge. And by doing immunofluorescence study, what do we find is that there is deposition of IgG, IgM, C1, C4, C3. As we can see, there is decrease in the complement level. As there is increase in the complement level in the glomerulus, the amount of complement in the blood will be decreased. So decreased amount of complement in the blood, and that will happen for a period of about 4 weeks, and this is known as transient hypocomplementemia. So these are transient hypocomplementemia because the amount of complement in the blood is decreased, but just in the due course of the disease, right? So that happens like this. So we can see that the deposit is happening just beneath the epithelium in the subepithelial area. So, and when we see via the immunofluorescence study, we can see the granular pattern of immunofluorescence, and this is usually referred as starry sky appearance. So this is referred as starry sky appearance. Okay. So this is a immunofluorescence study. We can see it is not so diffuse. It is a granular deposit of the fluorescent dye, and that is especially IgG, IgM, and also along with the complement. So complement deposit happens here. And as I said, in the electron microscopy, what do we see is that we'll be seeing the deposit in the subepithelial area, and that will be presenting with subepithelial humps. Right? Subepithelial humps will be present in the electron microscopy. That will be seeing just in a bit. And also we'll be seeing a granular pattern of immunofluorescence, and this pattern is also known as starry sky appearance. Along with that, it is also known as lumpy bumpy pattern. So lumpy bumpy pattern. Okay. So this pattern will be asked in examination as starry sky appearance is seen in which kind of nephritic syndrome. It can be asked like that. So now we will see the electron microscopic feature, and what I said in the electron microscopic feature is that we'll be seeing subepithelial humps, right? So let us see this diagram. So let us focus in this part of the diagram first, and we can see that these are our endothelial cells, and just beneath the endothelial cell, this is our glomerular basement membrane, And just beneath the glomerular basement, these are our effaced food pressure of the podocyte. These are our podocyte. So we can see one podocyte here. So we can see another podocyte here, and just beneath the podocyte, just beneath the visceral epithelial cell, we can see this deposit here, and this deposit is our subepithelial humps. So we can see this deposit is present just beneath the epithelium, and this is known as our subepithelial humps. Right? So these are subepithelial humps. So in this way, we have already completed our video on acute proliferative glomerulonephritis, also known as post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. And in the next video, I'll be discussing about RPGN, that is our rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis. I hope you understand this video, and if you have any confusion, you can comment down in the comment section below. So hopefully I'll be able to answer your questions and solve your queries as well. Thank you very much.